Hey everybody, it's Wolvash. Welcome back to Werewolf, Heart of the Forest. Alright, we're in Chapter 2, starting Chapter 2, logging. Here we go. The day after. The next morning was full of sunshine and birdsong. I could smell the heat of the afternoon building. Those long, honey-like hours in late June when the earth isn't tired of its own warmth yet. But it was crisp and pleasant now. I sat on my bed for a moment, letting my feet dangle from it. I wasn't sure how I felt. The weight of the previous day had coiled up for somewhere in my chest, and it felt like a tiny merry-go-round gaining speed. Then I remembered the dream, the clearing, the animals in the night sky, waiting for me. I took a shower, ate something without really paying attention, and went out. Anna joined me. Oh, here we go. We were halfway through the forest when Bartek caught up with us. You were right, Anya. The protest is important. Protest activists and answers. Here we go. Into the forest. This is Bartek. This is Anya. Is this me now? With different hair? I don't know. Against the machines. I was running all the options over and over in my head, and I didn't really care where I was going. When I looked up, the sun was shining, the village was far behind me, and I was at the logging site. Anya looked around. So what's the plan? Are we trying to stop the logging or learn about my family? Like, my goal is to learn about my family, so we're going to learn about my family. That's my driving force. I need to figure out how my family fitted into all of this. I looked around. On my right was the ancient forest. On my left was the freshly torn clearing. Ahead of me, ruining the view, were huge logging machines, and a group of people arguing in their shadow. It was clear they needed an outside voice to settle the disputes. I looked at everyone. There were people there too. The loggers were sitting idly on the tree trunk sharing cigarettes. The police that stood between them and a colorful group of protesters were visibly uneasy and twitchy. I saw some reporters who were clearly bored because no one was doing anything interesting. The harvesters loomed over the clearing, reeking. I saw a familiar face. Kim was standing next to a vaguely military-looking white man who was arguing with Olga from the cemetery. The protesters were clearly conflicted. I wanted to know what it was all about. Curious about the reason for it all, I approached the protesters. One of the police officers, young and nervous, said something I didn't fully understand. I let Bartek handle it. Bartek leaned over to him and whispered something. The officer instantly lost interest. "Oh," he said, "you're one of them." And he let us go. Just then I noticed that someone joined us. And then I noticed that someone used the commotion to sneak up past the police. A girl with disheveled, bleached out hair. "Don't worry," she patted the officer on his arm. "It was an awful pickup line anyway." He recoiled. You shouldn't touch me, ma'am." I rolled my eyes. And wanted to say something, but I was interrupted. "Pat!" Some guy called her from the gathering. "Would you come here? I need to show Olga that chart." She sighed, reaching into her backpack and taking out a tablet. "And they're at it again," she murmured under her breath and winked at me. "Coming!" As I walked towards Kim, I heard more and more of the argument. "Olga, you can't!" The man was speaking with a strong German accent. Pat stood next to him with her tablet. She looked a bit amused. "Do not fucking tell me what I can or can't do, Cornell." Or Cornell, however it's pronounced. Olga interrupted. "I can because they are destroying our mother. I can fight with all the means at my disposal, even if that means burning those harvesters to the ground." A slender, green-eyed man was standing near her. He took a few steps back and went towards one of the harvesters, turned his back on us all, and pissed on the machine. Olga smirked. "Aw, Daniel, you do know how to bring the point home." He looked at her confused. Cornell raised his eyebrows. Burn the harvesters? Cornell asked calmly. In this drought? Olga, are you out of your mind? You know what I mean. We fight them any way we can, because this is a fucking war, she spat. He sighed. You've never seen real war and it shows. Nobody is shooting at us, and believe me, we want it to stay that way. We need a peaceful protest. Hey, can we talk? I asked, approaching Kim. Oh, Maia, darling, it's good to see you, they smiled. Maybe you'll be able to convince her. Oh, so I was to take a stand? I looked at them. I looked at them both. Olga with her fury and passion, Cornell with his cool professional demeanor, and shared without any reservations what I felt about the situation. Peaceful wasn't flashy enough, no. There's a fine line to tread between being proactive and being dangerous. Olga's cautious, Cornell is unfriendly, cautious, sympathetic. Okay, so we got a couple of interesting reactions out of that. There's a fine line to tread, I said in silence. You don't want the protesters to be painted as terrorists, and you don't want them to be treated as irrelevant and ignored. Kim shook their head and moved forward. Olga, darling, you know I love you, but Cornell really knows what he's doing. Please trust me on that one. They looked at her apologetically. Fuck off, Kim. You didn't even trust me enough to come here on your own when I asked you to. Lisa looked them straight in the eye. She had a peculiar accent. Kim, you want to teach me about violence? She looked him straight in the eye. About fighting oppression? Just because your boss went to what? One mission in Afghanistan? Her Polish was peculiar, kind of mellow. Cornell winced. Lisa, leave Kim alone. He didn't know what to say, and it seemed that the whole discussion would be derailed. I didn't let that happen. Hey guys, the forest? The logging? The protest? Olga unclenched her fists. Cornell looked back at her and chuckled softly. You almost punched me. The conversation was over, at least for the time being. Cornell, together with his cronies, walked toward the reporters, while Olga went back to the group of people standing in the shadow of an old oak tree. Puscha is sympathetic. Well, the forest is sympathetic with us. Interesting. I looked... Oh, cool. And this is a variation that occurred in the story because of our current stats. So this happened because of other things we said. And I love that it says variant, too, because I'm watching Loki, as you all should be. And it's cool. It's a variant, a splintered off thing that happens when we mess with the timeline. I looked at the Puscha. The clearing full of felled trees was like a gaping, bleeding wound in the chest of a friend. I had to do something. Oh, I'm raging now. I looked at my friends. We have to stop this logging. Yes, just like Olga said, Anya nodded, excited. What they're doing is unforgivable, and we have to fight. It is a very complicated situation, Bartek. Very complicated situation. Bartek looked thoughtful. I liked what that guy Cornell said, that we should proceed peacefully, not to discourage the public and potential supporters. I looked at one group, I looked at the other. Oh. The harvesters were dripping with black oil, and the forest stood tall, serene, and full of golden light. It looked like it could protect itself. And then I looked at the felled, dead trees, dead, limp, helpless. Cornell answers. I want to deal with trying to find answers before I start escalating to violence. I'm probably a werewolf, but I'm not a monster yet. In the limelight. As I approached the group, Kim waved at me. Come here. It took me straight to the leader of the group, a man who was arguing with Olga. Hello, Maia, he said. I see you haven't come alone. He reached out his hand. Let's see. I shook it. He didn't act like a dick. His handshake was firm and strong. His eyes were an uncanny shade of gray. He might have been in his early 30s, I thought. He looked tough. Damn, you look like a tough guy, I blurted out, impressed. He was, in that bad boy, hipster military way. What is a hipster military way? That is not something I am aware of. If you know what hipster military way is, please let me know, because it sounds not normal. I know, he said without skipping a beat. Cornell looked me in the eyes. I know why you came to Białowieża. The forest is reaching out to you, because for a long time your ancestors were its servants, and now you're the only one left to pay what they owed. Got some more willpower. Family has unpaid debts to the forest. Okay. I looked at him, skeptical, but he seemed to believe it. The important question is, he looked at me intensely, do you want to help? I had no time to answer. But before I could answer, I heard a commotion and turned around. The reporters were coming our way, but their cameras were switched off and pointed at the ground. Why weren't they filming? Funny, I thought. They should be taking photos or filming the protest, but I couldn't remember if they were when I arrived at the site. So? Asked Cornell. Was there a hint of impatience in his voice? The reporter shook his head and grimaced. Sorry, everyone. We can't do anything. We're not allowed to cover what's going on here. Suddenly, I understood. Then it hit me. The police weren't here to protect the protesters or the press. Yeah, it must be hard to do your job when the police is watching your every step, I said, and they nodded. This was a moment of tense silence, and then it all came together. This looks like Reese Witherspoon a little bit, and Shia LaBeouf. I think we've cast the movie for this. Reese Witherspoon and Shia LaBeouf in Part of the Forest. Let's see. Suddenly I understood the dream. That was the moment I was destined to intervene. The white weasel and the wolf. We're deciding which ones these are. Okay, interesting. They need the inspiration. We don't want to be... No, this is like blow stuff up. The reporters understand what's going on, but we need to use them in some way. We need to make them useful, because right now they're not useful. They're not helping us at all. Keep talking. I looked at the protesters. They didn't have any real plan. They were a ragtag bunch thrown together by circumstance without a real plan or clear purpose. I looked around, put my hands in my pockets, and wandered toward the journalists. We just needed a little nudge. I've always wanted to be a journalist, you know? I said to the nearest one. The fourth pillar of democracy and all that. But maybe things work differently here in Poland. He looked at me with tired eyes. I winked. He smiled. Unspectacular as it was, I managed to connect. I acted on it. Does it always look like this? I asked. I mean, is it an everyday situation that you can't report? No, one of them answered. He was tall, in his 30s. There were a few glances toward him, almost a flash of warning, but it was too late. But then why were they here at all? Wait, so why are you here at all? I asked. And then it hit me. You were sent here to find some dirt on the activists, to get something that would compromise the protests. They looked at one another, suddenly unsure of what to say. Then I heard shouts as Olga and her protesters clashed with the police, and the cameramen grabbed their gear and ran toward the action. Remember, we want the aggressive one, shouted one of the reporters. I could see the logo of the national TV station on his camera. And we were alone. Fuck! Cornell swore and threw his thermal cup at the ground. It bounced, spilling hot coffee everywhere. Someone grabbed me by the shoulder. I turned around and then saw Kim. This is when you exit the scene. They turned me around and gently but firmly pushed me away. We'll be in touch, they whispered. We didn't do that. We didn't cause them to get violent. Interesting. The ugly truth. When I was on the road to the village and nobody could see me, I stopped and screamed. A startled flock of birds took off from the trees nearby and filled the air with feathers and movement. In the whole commotion, I lost Anya and Bartek from my sight. I was alone. Or so I thought. "Hey, are you all right?" a voice from behind me said, and I jumped. A woman was walking toward me. I said nothing. Angry, I straightened up and said nothing, my throat still sore. We walked toward the village. I learned that she was an independent German reporter who'd come here about a month ago. Her name was Erica. "So why are you protesting the logging?" she asked after a few minutes of small talk. "For personal reasons." "I came here for personal reasons, and I've dropped right in the middle of some eco-guerrilla campaign." I shrugged. "And for many reasons, my interests are all aligned with the protesters." I looked at her. "And why are you asking?" "Do you know why they're cutting down the trees?" she asked back. "Because do you know that logging is done by a government company, the state forests?" I had no idea. "I didn't know that," I admitted. "In fact, I knew very little." "I know very little about the situation," I realized. "Just what the others have told me." She reached for her notebook. "It all started with the spruce bark beetles." Erica looked into her notes and started explaining the whole situation. "That year, the beetles' infestation was of catastrophic proportions, and the foresters decided that the only way to stop it and save the rest of the forest was to cut down as many of the infested trees as fast as possible." "Couldn't they just remove the dead trees?" "Maybe if they removed the dead trees, the infestation wouldn't spread." I tried to find a solution. "They might do that, but dead trees are what make the forest unique," Erica smiled. "There are 20 times more species living on a dead spruce tree than on an alive one." "Was cutting down the trees necessary?" "Is cutting down the trees the only way to stop the infestation?" I asked, confused. "The foresters state that this is the only way," she said. "Some biologists argue that they're cutting the wrong trees and doing it too late to change anything." "But is it all illegal?" "But is the logging legal?" I wanted to know. "Opinions differ, but such massive logging as a UNESCO-listed area might be illegal," Erica answered. "Couldn't they just leave the puszcha alone and let nature take its course?" I asked. "That's one of the options," Erica admitted. "But there's a drought. A drought? Drought? That's right. But there's a drought. It's also draft, if you read it in a different term. So, anyway, there's a drought, and none of us are sure that the forest would survive on its own." Matter of fact, I think drought might be with an O. Anyway, whatever. The situation was more complex than I thought, and Erica's answers did nothing to clear the picture. What was the truth? "Stop beating around the bush, please," I asked. "I need to know the truth." "I'm just doing my job," Erica shrugged. "I describe all aspects of the situation to you, but it's up to you to decide what you want to do." Yeah, everyone had their jobs. I nodded. That was her job. My job was to do something about the situation. At least, I was sure that they were cutting down the trees, and the puszcha needed my help. "What happened to the wood?" "When they cut down the trees, what happened to the wood?" I asked Erica. "The state forests have to be financially self-sufficient. They earn money by selling forest products, including wood," she answered. "That's why I think the bark beetle is not the reason, but an excuse to push more wood on the market." I concluded my case. She looked skeptical. "You're not the only one feeling helpless," she sighed. "I'm just helping you make an informed choice." So I said nothing. I always felt so angry when there was too much to process at once. And everything that had happened at the logging site, the heat, the stench of the harvesters, the tension between Olga and Cornell, that you could cut with a knife, it almost sent me into some kind of frenzy. "What's the matter?" she asked. I told her about my anger. I admitted my helplessness. Let's talk about my anger. I'm so fucking angry at what I saw. I took a deep breath, and then I remembered what Cornell had said. And they said I have some family debts to pay. I shook my head. It's a lot to take in. And there was that foul smell back there. She looked at me with a weird expression. What smell? She asked. The smell wasn't the point. Of all the things I told you, you asked about a smell? I huffed. I'm trying to understand what's going on here. She looked at me with a strange expression on her face, as though she wanted to say something and then thought better of it. I thought she'd been hurt by my outburst. You'll learn in your own time if you stay here long enough, she said, clearly wanting to drop the topic. What does she mean? What do you mean? I asked, getting irritated. I just told you. You'll learn it in time. Or not at all, which would frankly be better. Anyway, gotta run. As I watched her leave, I thought that whatever was my family legacy had surely manifested itself that day. Alright, decided to pay my family's debts, even though we don't know what they are yet. I jumped right into the middle of a very tense situation, and at the very least, upset the status quo. I just hoped I hadn't made things worse. I walked on in silence. Time to regroup. When I opened the door, I found Anya and Bartek sitting on Anya's bed. They were a little flustered and were nonchalantly trying to look like I hadn't interrupted anything. We lost sight of you, Bartek said apologetically. I'm glad you made it back in one piece. So, how was your day? Anya asked. I shrugged. Just another day in Białowieża. Białowieża. I keep saying low, don't I? Białowieża. Unless it's Vi. Is it Białowieża? Białowieża. I'm saying it wrong no matter what, I'm sure. We sat for a while in silence. You know, there's more to see here than Białowieża. Białowieża, Bartek said to me. You could visit Pogozelc, Budi, Teremeski. Hey, I can read that one. And Sherlonka. Pogozelc, Budi, Teremeski, and Sherlonka. Lord of mercy. See, in the open-air museum and the bison, the longing is not all that happens here. I couldn't see everything. It would be great if I could see everything, but I can't, I shrugged. I want to focus on the logging, even if I'm missing something else. And how's the search for your roots going? Asked Bartek, clearly wanting to change the topic. I shared what I learned. It seems that my ancestors lived around the forest for a long time, I said. And there's some kind of debts to be paid. Wow. Andy looked impressed. Honestly, I'm not sure what to think. But if you need something, just let me know. I just sat there looking through the window. The day had been full on, and I was exhausted. Didn't even notice when I fell asleep. Oh, we got a wolf in the dream. Full-blown wolf. I can do anything. It's quiet now. Yet I know deep down inside that something isn't right. I sneak. I'm sneaking through the forest to the logging site. It's getting dark. The light seeps away as though there are millions of tiny punch holes in the sky through which it can escape, and then the darkness starts to pour in. I know what I will see. And I see the bodies strewn across the ground, bloodied, maimed, with their limbs torn from destroyed torsos. I can see some of them are still alive, still struggling for air. They are all trees, fallen trees, still alive, still struggling for air. I can see movement in the darkness. I see shapes moving in the darkness. They have long skeletal arms. They are wrapped in glistening black intestines, and each arm has a wide, gaping mandible full of whirring blades. They snap at me blindly. I feel righteous anger burning through me like molten lava bubbling from the ground, through my feet, up my legs, through my chest to my head. I point at the monsters. My friends watch, and I bask in their rage. I howl the sentence. I howl out the death sentence, and we run toward the monstrous shapes. We bite off heads and tear off arms. We are an executioner's axe, unflinching. And then I wake up. I gasped and bolted upright. I was alone. The sun was setting, and in the deep red light, the room looked like it was bathed in blood. My pillow was on the ground, and the duvet was torn. Tiny feathers were spilling through the tear. What happened? Chapter 3, The Standoff. All right, Chapter 3. Yeah, I think I like this. I like these cutoff points. A little bit shorter episodes, but just by a bit. I think that works out all right. So we're getting through. I did not expect this werewolf game to have so much logging in it. I guess logging Apocalypse, Heart of the Forest wouldn't have attracted as many people. So we'll see where the werewolves come into play. Because right now I just feel like we're doing like the slightly moodier adult version of Fern Gully. But anyway, we got more to do, so we can't judge a book by its cover yet, or by its first 2 chapters, I suppose. But next time, guys, Chapter 3, Standoff. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you there.